What's going on, YouTube? We're taking a journey to the Kalos region today. I really wanted to do some games that aren't really out there on YouTube, and I thought X and Y would be the perfect ones to try solo runs in. Mostly because, well, as you saw by the thumbnail, one of my favorite Pokemon comes from this region. And I thought I'd be doing it a better justice playing it in its original game than trying to backport it into, say, Gen 1 or Gen 2. But as you can see by the thumbnail, we're going to be running Aegislash today. And that's how I heard it pronounced in the anime, so that's how I'm going to try to pronounce it throughout this video. Now, I think is a good time to go over Aegislash's stats. And, well, let's just say this thing is kind of a gimmick Pokemon. It has two forms, its shield form and its blade form. While in the shield form, its defensive stats are the more superior, while when it's in its blade form, you flip-flop them and its attack stats are the more superior stats. Of course, you'll be able to change back between these two forms thanks to the help of a move called King Shield, which is Aegislash's signature move. And speaking of Aegislash's moves, it has quite a bit to start with. But because it's a stone evolution, we only get the last 4 on this learn set. Of course, heart scales do exist in this game, but we won't be able to use them until we get to Anastar City, which is the home of the 7th gym badge. So at the beginning of the game here, you actually get your starter Pokemon from your friend Tierno, and your rivals are Callum and Shauna. Pending which character you pick, if you pick the girl character like I did, Callum will have the starter that is strongest against yours, where Shauna will not. You can see that Aegislash makes quick work of Froakie in this first rival battle, but what do you say we just get right into the run? Let's pick this up in the first gym in Santaloon City. This is a bug-type gym, so Aegislash, since it has Aerial Ace on its moveset, is able to make quick work of all of the trainers, and the extra training is going to help out down the road. And after we battle the 2 optional trainers, we can take on Viola, the gym leader. She has 2 Pokemon, a Surskit and a Vivillon, but with Swords Dance and Aerial Ace on our moveset, we can set up once, we're able to one-shot the Surskit. An extra Swords Dance would have been able to one-shot the Vivillon, but it's not like its attacks could do anything to me anyway. She uses a potion, but we still knock it out with Aerial Ace. That's our first gym badge. But if you've played these games before, you know that the time between badge 1 and badge 2 is a lot. So the next place we have to head to is Lumiose City, which is actually home of the 5th gym badge. But we're not going to be able to challenge the gym just yet. We can, however, challenge Professor Sycamore, who has the 3 Kanto starters, and upon defeating him, you get your choice between one of the 3. I opted for Squirtle personally because, well, I'm going to need a HM user for Surf, Strength, and Waterfall for later on. I have a Zigzagoon for Cut, and a Fletchling for Fly, so now I'm good for my HM users. After defeating the professor, we have to make a VR video, and then head to the cafe with Callum, where we meet Lysander, more on him later, and Champion Diantha. Upon leaving though, we get a holocast from our friend Tierno? I don't know how to pronounce his name. Anyway, we have to battle him on Route 5. I'm probably just going to show this battle against him because we do battle him more throughout the run, but he's really a irrelevant rival. Anyways, against this Corphish, it's just 2 Sacred Swords to take it down. I'm going to do a bit of a jump cut here. We're going to arrive in Camphirier Town, and on Route 6, there's a Snorlax blocking the way. We're supposed to go to Parfrum Palace to get the Pokeflute, and we can also get the HM for Cut, along with a hidden rare candy. Unfortunately, OBS decided it didn't want to record that section, so we're just gonna meet back here after we have the Pokeflute. So with the Pokeflute now in hand, we can wake up the Snorlax, and you can opt to catch it for an extra HM user. However, I opt to knock it out because, well, I want the extra experience, and it's going to come in handy down the line for Aegislash anyway. So on the way to the next town, we have a double battle against Tierno and Trevor, with Callum joining us. And this is probably one of those battles I'll cut out in future runs, but I figure first run in X and Y, might as well show it off. Aegislash is able to handle both Pokemon on its own fairly well, and it's pretty funny that they knock out Callum's Fletchling. So let's jump ahead to the next town, Amberette Town. And right behind the Pokemon Center, we can get a very useful item. A heart scale that's going to come in handy later on, in case we want to teach Aegislash something like Iron Head or Head Smash later. I talk to the scientist about some fossils, I ride a Rhyhorn to Glittering Cave, and I can pick up the TM for Shadow Claw while in here. Within Glittering Cave, we have our first encounter with Team Flare. I have to dispose of a few grunts, 2 of which tag team me at the end of the cave, but my rival Callum helps me out. I take the Jaw fossil at the end, and when back in town, I can get Rock Smash from this lady outside the Pokemon Center. I get the dowsing machine from this swimmer when trying to leave, and I backtrack to grab this rare candy on the beach just south of town. We have finally arrived in Salage City, which is the home of the second gym. About an hour and a half of in-game time passed. While heading to the gym, we run into the second gym leader, Grant, who gives us the HM for strength. And of course, the rock-type gym leader has a rock-climbing gym. You'd think with Sacred Sword and Swords Dance on my moveset, along with being a steel type, this would be an easy battle. Well, just watch. I go to set up a Swords Dance because I want to be able to sweep his team, and Amora paralyzes me with Thunder Wave. Because of its Refrigerate ability, Takedown is an ice move, which can now hit me. I go for Sacred Sword, which does one-shot it. But next is Tyrunt, which will outspeed me now. And Tyrunt has Bite on its moveset, which is a super effective move. I go for King Shield, which will also lower Tyrunt's attack when it goes for Bite. I try to go for Sacred Sword afterwards. Tyrunt scores a massive critical hit, and I flinch from the Bite. And pretty much from this point, I'm delaying the inevitable. It's going to outspeed me, and it's going to knock me out, no matter how much I lower its attack by switching to King Shield. And that's the first loss of the run. Of course, knowing what we know now, we can just go for the straight offensive approach. In the second attempt, I'm just going to go for Sacred Sword right away. It does one-shot Amora, which is nice. We have Tyrunt to deal with still. I'm going to go for King Shield in hopes that it goes for Bite and gets its attack lowered. It goes for Rock Tomb, so it doesn't make contact. I can set up Sword Stance while in the defensive stance, and switch back to Blade Stance, and Sacred Sword one-shots it. That's 2 gym badges down, with a lot more game to go, and quite a bit to go before we can even get to gym number 3 to get badge number 3. So let's skip ahead some. On the next route, we run into a lot of Team Flare grunts looking like they're trying to block the way to something. Well, they're just really blocking the way to the next town, Geosenge Town. There really isn't much here, it's pretty much an abandoned town for now. We will be making our way back here later on. However, exiting town, we do have a battle against Karina, who is the gym leader in the next city we're heading to. She just has 2 Lucarios, and after setting up with Sword Stance, we're able to one-shot both with Sacred Sword. But after defeating her, we're going to skip ahead, we're not going to show off Reflection Cave, and we have arrived in Shalor City, where we need to make our way to the Tower of Mastery next, where we're also going to have a battle against our rival Callum. And while learning the game, this battle gave me some difficulty. In my actual solo run playthrough, it didn't. He leads with Meowstic, and I want to set up Sword Stance for the final 2 Pokemon, Absol and Braxian. After I'm fully set up, I go on the offensive, but Meowstic goes for Psybeam and confuses me. Thankfully, I do get through the confusion. Aerial Ace is able to one-shot it. Absol does have a type advantage, along with the ability Super Luck in this game, so I go for King Shield, and it's a good thing I did. I end up hitting myself in confusion, and Absol's Bite does huge damage. Thankfully, we do outspeed it, and Sacred Sword is able to one-shot it. Braxian is last, and this thing's going to be a huge problem later on when it's a Delphox. I go for King Shield because I wasn't sure if it would outspeed me. King Shield has priority, We do outspeed it, and Aerial Ace is able to one-shot it. And with the win, not only are we able to now challenge Karina at the gym, but we're also going to have a rematch against her at the top of this very tower right after. I gotta say, Karina's gym, probably one of the coolest I've seen in any of the Pokemon games. Just a giant roller rink, and for anybody who lives in Michigan like I do, if you were growing up, maybe you went to Skate World as a child, which was just a giant roller ring as well. Do they have those in other states? Let me know in the comments. But let's get right into the battle with Karina. And as much as I'd like to narrate this battle, she's pretty much the equivalent of a Bruno at this point for us. I mean, we set up 2 Swords Dance, and Aerial Ace is able to sweep through her entire team. Mienfoo, Machoke, and Hawlucha, who I wouldn't mind doing a run with in this game down the line, all go down in one shot. And we're battling her once again atop the Tower of Mastery. But this battle is just an introductory battle to how Mega Evolutions work. You're not required to win or lose, but you are required to use this Lucario, who then she offers to give you after the battle. I declined it in this playthrough, but let's continue on. A Mega Lucario playthrough might be fun though. Let me know in the comments if you want to see that eventually. I get Surf from Callum as we exit town, and I can make my way to Route 12 where I pick up some extra battles, along with picking up a very useful item for in this playthrough. I can cut down this tree and get the leftovers, which I put on Aegislash right away. Eventually, we're going to make our way to Comarine City, where again, we're going to have another rival battle with Callum, this time in front of the Comarine City gym. He leads with Meowstic once again. I'm going to set up 3 Swords Dances, and Meowstic really doesn't have the offensive capabilities to do any major damage to Aegislash, and the leftovers heal back any lost HP in the damage it deals. Aerial Ace is able to one-shot it after the full setup, although full setup wasn't needed for it. Against Absol, I switched to King Shield just to protect myself from Bite and super effective damage, and Sacred Sword is able to one-shot it. Braxian is last. I use King Shield just to protect myself from any fire moves, but the only fire move this thing knows is Fire Spin, and Aerial Ace is able to one-shot it. With Callum out of the way, we can go ahead and now face the gym leader Ramos, the Grass-type specialist. He leads with Jump Bluff. I'm going to set up 1 Swords Dance. Jump Bluff Leech Seeds me, and then I go on the offensive. And I'm not sure if 1 Swords Dance was needed for the one-shot range on all of his Pokemon, but Aerial Ace is able to one-shot Jump Bluff, Go-Go, and his final Pokemon, Weepinbell. And I know a lot of these battles have been pretty anticlimactic for Aegislash thus far, but trust me, things are going to start picking up later on. We're going to head to the Kalos power plant next, and I know I didn't mention it earlier in the video, but Lumio City, we actually couldn't access the gym or half of the city due to a power outage, and we're going to take care of that now. Of course, Team Flare is behind it all, so we need to take care of them. First up is the Team Flare admin who has a Houndoom. This battle is pretty easy. It's just set up 1 Swords Dance and then take it out with Sacred Sword. Beat Up's power is based off the number of Pokemon in your party, and since they only have 1, well, it does pathetic damage. Next up is Aliana, who has a Mightyena that has Intimidate as its ability. This will be a problem later on for Aegislash as we face other Team Flare members, because Aegislash will need an extra turn to set up, and we're going to have to use King Shield to block any damage from the stronger dark attacks we're going to encounter later on. This battle's rather annoying though, because Aliana likes to go for Roar as we try to set up. This does allow Mightyena to get off 2 assurances as we switch back into Aegislash, and though our HP may get low, being in the shield form lessens the damage, and the leftover recovery is enough that we can set up, go for Sacred Sword, and take the battle. Because of Mightyena roaring in my HM users, I do have to go through prompts of them leveling up, and I think in the future I may just let them get fainted in the battle so I don't have to deal with that and waste more time. We can now leave the power plant and head to Lumio City, but I go ahead and pick up Flame Charge from this guy on the way out, and just outside of Lumio City, we can smash these 2 boulders to get a rare candy. With power restored in Lumio City, it's now time to challenge the 5th gym leader, Clement. But before doing so, we're going to teach Aegislash Shadow Claw in place of Aerial Ace. Going forward, Aerial Ace isn't going to serve much of a purpose anymore, and Shadow Claw is not only stronger, but gives stab damage and has increased critical hit chance. Clement leads with Emolga, and if you've played Pokemon Black and White, you know how annoying this thing is. I go for Swords Dance as Emolga goes for Volt Switch, and Clement sends out Magneton. Magneton is annoying for two reasons. One, it has the ability Sturdy, and the second is that it has Electric Terrain. I'm not going to get too much into Electric Terrain, but the big thing is that it's going to boost the power of Clement's Pokemon's electric attacks. He's trying to stall me out by just going for Hyper Potions, but this also helps me because I can stall out the Electric Terrain. After 2 Hyper Potions, I go for King Shield to block Magneton's attack. And it looks like Clement's out of Hyper Potions at this point, so I can go for Sacred Sword to knock out Magneton. But more importantly, we've also stalled out the Electric Terrain. Out comes Heliolisk next, and it outspeeds and hits me with Thunderbolt, and had that Electric Terrain been up, it would have one-shot me. Sacred Sword is able to one-shot it since it is part normal type, and all that's left is that annoying Emolga from earlier. I can go for King Shield to block its attack and lower its attack. Volt Switch doesn't do much to me, and I can go for Shadow Claw to knock this thing out, and that's 6 gym badges in hand. After leaving the gym, we make a pit stop at the cafe and can leave town, where we're immediately challenged by our rival Callum. As per the previous battles, he leads with Meowstic. I'm going to set up Swords Dance because I want to be able to one-shot his remaining Pokemon, and Meowstic really can't do much to us. The leftovers recover almost all the HP it does to us, although it does get a special defense drop with Psychic. After 2 Swords Dance, I go ahead and go for Shadow Claw. It's a one-shot. Next up is Delphox, and this thing was a pain in practice, because it now knows Flamethrower. I go for King Shield anticipating it. It goes for Psybeam, so we're able to block it. I decide let's go for Shadow Claw, and Mystical Fire does huge damage and gets an attack drop. So maybe it doesn't have Flamethrower yet, but thankfully we're able to one-shot it with Shadow Claw. Absol's next. I'm going to go for King Shield just to block any of its Dark-type attacks. It goes for Swords Dance instead, and thankfully we outspeed it, and Sacred Sword is able to one-shot. Let's skip ahead some and pick this up in Lavere City, where we're going to take on the next gym leader, Valerie. She's a fairy type specialist and leads with Mawile, who's a fairy type starting in this generation. I go ahead and set up a Swords Dance while it sets up Iron Defense. I set up another Swords Dance and it goes for Crunch. I decide let's go on the offensive from here, and Sacred Sword will one-shot this thing. Next up is Mr. Mime. And while this thing does outspeed, it doesn't go for any offensive attacks, it just sets up Light Screen, which is fine. We don't have any special type moves. Shadow Claw is able to one-shot it. Last is Sylveon, who I want to do a solo run with in this game. We outspeed it, and Shadow Claw is able to get the one-shot. So yet another gym battle where Aegislash just really dominates. But we kind of had a bit of a type advantage, and had we had Iron Head on our moveset, it would have went a lot quicker. We're going to head to the Pokeball Factory now, where once again we have to put a stop to Team Flare's plans. And real quick, I want to give a shout out to Gym Leader Matt. This Pokemon choral music that I've been hearing in your videos, A1, I had to put it in mine. The grunts here are easy experience for Aegislash, and once again we have to battle the Team Flare admin. And you know how this goes, set up a Swords Dance, knock out both Scraggy and Houndoom. I'm just gonna go ahead and speed past this, because the next battle is a double battle against Celosia and Byrony. We're gonna go with those as the pronunciation. Anyway, Callum joins us for this battle. So like with all battles, I like to set up Swords Dance and then go on the offensive. Manectric has the static ability, which worries me. Unfortunately, Liepard goes for Taunt, and Manectric's bite flinches me to where I can't move. Because of Taunt, I can't use King Shield to go back into Shield form. Bite does big damage, and Assurance finishes me off. Since I didn't save, I have to make my way back through the Pokeball Factory, and I decide to skip all the optional grunts the second time around. Once again, I want to set up Swords Dance and then go on the offensive. This time, I'm going to target Manectric right away. I go for Sacred Sword. It doesn't hit me with Bite, which is good. I won't get flinched. We can knock it out in one hit. I decide to go straight offensive on Liepard as well. I'm hoping Assurance won't knock me out, but it uses it on Meowstic instead, and Aegislash is able to follow up and knock it out. With Team Flare defeated, they make like Team Rocket and flee like the cowards they are. We get the Master Ball as a reward, and we can head off towards the next town. Before leaving town though, I'm going to do some vitamin shopping. I'm going to buy 2 Carbos, 3 Protein, and 7 Zincs. And although Aegislash is a powerhouse, there are some cracks in its armor. As we make our way to DwunD town though, the next city, on Route 15, we can get this PP up hidden right here, which will come in handy later. And once we arrive in DwunD town, we're going to have to make our way towards Frost Cave, where once again we have to deal with Team Flare, but I'm just going to skip the battles against the grunts. We're going to go straight into the battle against Mabel. And earlier I mentioned that Aegislash had some cracks in the armor. Well, in this battle, it's full display as to how and why. Mabel leads with a Houndoom, and normally these haven't been a problem to this point in the run. But Mabel's Houndoom knows Foul Play, which is probably the strongest dark type move that we've encountered up to this point. I try to set up a Swords Dance, and then I go for King Shield, trying to lower Houndoom's attack, but its next Foul Play gets a critical hit and knocks me out. Like with the Pokeball Factory, I didn't save prior to this battle, so I have to make my way all the way back. I do skip the optional trainers this time around. This time, I go straight offensive on Houndoom. Foul Play does about a third of my HP, and Sacred Sword is able to one-shot Houndoom. Team Flare's plans foiled once again, but unfortunately this isn't the last time we see them. We can now take a ride on a Mamoswine to the next city, Anastar City, which I thought these were cool little features added in. And once again, we're going to have a rival battle against Callum in front of the gym. Callum now has 4 Pokemon in his party, and of course his lead is Meowstic. We know from previous battles that this thing can't do much to us damage-wise, so we go ahead and set up on it, and then we're going to go on the offensive. But this battle, in practice, really gave me problems when learning the game. See, after 2 Swords Dance, I go for Shadow Claw, we're able to one-shot it. We level up, but next up is Delphox, and this thing knows Flamethrower, which, in practice, would decimate me. I go for King Shield because I don't want to get hit by Flamethrower, and it goes for Psychic. And it doesn't go for Psychic once, it goes for Psychic twice. See, Delphox also outspeeds, which is a big problem. Thankfully, we're able to knock it out, but had it gone for Flamethrower, this battle would probably be a different story. I go for King Shield on Absol because I don't want to get hit by Bite, or Night Slash, which it uses there. We go for Sacred Sword on the next turn, we do outspeed it, it's a one-shot. Last is Jolteon, and the only attack it knows that can hit Aegislash is Discharge, which it does go for, doing over half my HP, but Aegislash is able to hold on and knock it out with Sacred Sword. We can now enter Anastar City's gym, which Aegislash has a type advantage being part Ghost, so I do some extra training here. This is also the part in the run where I start to think, do I want to use my heart scales to relearn some older moves? Do I want to get rid of Sacred Sword in the place of Iron Head? We still do have one more gym badge, and the Elite Four still to take care of, along with one more encounter with Team Flare and a few more rival battles, so there's plenty of time to sort all that out. Waiting for us at the end of the gym is the gym leader Olympia. She leads with Sigilyph, who I'd like to do a playthrough with in Pokemon Black 2 and White 2. I'm not going to set up Swords Dance in this battle, I'm going straight offensive. Unfortunately, Sigilyph goes for Reflect turn 1. We're still able to one-shot it thanks to the critical hit, but I'm not sure if we're going to be able to one-shot her remaining Pokemon. So my statement about not setting up Swords Dance, yeah, I'm going to retract that. I go for King Shield as Meowstic goes for Calm Mind. I set up a Swords Dance and it hits me with Shadow Ball, which does about a third of my HP. I go for King Shield to try to block some of the damage, I get a little bit of leftovers recovery, and I've got to go on the offensive now. Aegislash is down to 50 HP after that last Shadow Ball, but Shadow Claw is able to knock it out. Last is Slowking, and like its name says, this thing is slow. Aegislash is able to outspeed it, and Shadow Claw gets the one-shot. Upon leaving the gym, we get a hollow cast from Lysander, and it's pretty suspicious. We have to make our way back to Lumio City, battle against 2 Team Flare grunts, go behind this bookshelf, and we discover Lysander's labs. And Lysander himself, who we have to do battle against. But this isn't the only time we're going to be doing battle against the leader of Team Flare. And I'm just going to speed up the following footage that's about to play, otherwise I would just really bog down this video with a lot of battles, and I don't want to bore you guys. I know this video is already long, but just to give some context for people who maybe haven't played X and Y, or you haven't played it in a hot minute. Lysander, the way to describe him is, picture him, he's like Beerus. Before creation must come destruction. His goals is that he wants to create a more beautiful world, but he'll use incredibly destructive means to achieve it. The man wants to destroy mankind and Pokemon, and he wants to revive Xerneas to help him do that and create his utopia. But if it isn't obvious by the footage playing, we stop his plans, he ends up destroying himself, and if there's anything I missed, let me know in the comments. I just tried to, be really brief about it. But let's get on and finish up this video. We can finally head to our 8th and final gym battle against Wulfric, the Ice-type gym leader. He starts with Abomasnow. I want to set up one Swords Dance because he does have an Avalugg, which does have a lot of defense, and the setup is just to make sure that I one-shot it. But after setup, it's Sacred Sword, and Sacred Sword. That's all 8 gym badges down. But before heading to Victory Road, I'm going to make my way to Route 16. There are 2 rare candies we can pick up. The first using the dowsing machine when you exit Lumio City, and the second is near the Lost Hotel. Just cut down this bush, and it's right here. The time has finally come to enter Victory Road, and it's not a Pokemon game without a rival battle inside Victory Road. We face Callum for the last time. He leads with Meowstic, and Meowstic's gotten quite the moveset upgrade. It now has Shadow Ball. I set up a Swords Dance and a second because, well, I don't know what he's got in the back there. He has 5 Pokemon now. Meowstic hits me with 3 Shadow Balls before I go on the offensive. Shadow Claw is able to one-shot it, and his second Pokemon is Delphox. This thing has Flamethrower. I go for King Shield to block the first one, and then I go for Shadow Claw. Unfortunately, it does get a Flamethrower off on me, which brings me to 27 HP. We are able to one-shot it, but next is Absol. I'm gonna have to go for King Shield because it now has Night Slash over Bite. Because Night Slash is a physical attack, it will lower Absol's attack 2 stages, and we do outspeed it, so if we lose this battle, that's a good thing to know. Sacred Sword will one-shot it, and next up is Jolteon. Jolteon does outspeed, so I have to go for King Shield because it's gonna go for Discharge. And unfortunately, Discharge paralyzes me on the next turn. This is probably going to be the end for Aegislash since I get caught in Parahacks. I can go for King Shield just to delay the inevitable, but Jolteon is eventually going to knock me out. So knowing what we know from this first battle, let's hop right into the second one. I'm going to set up just one Swords Dance on Meowstic, just so we don't take too much damage from Shadow Ball. And from there, it's Shadow Claw to knock out Meowstic, a King Shield to block Delphox's Flamethrower and not take too much damage for it, and then we're going to use Sacred Sword on Absol, and we have plenty of HP going into the Jolteon. When Jolteon comes out, I'm going to go for King Shield just to block the damage from Discharge and to get some extra HP back from the leftovers. But unfortunately, Jolteon's next Discharge paralyzes Aegislash. We should be able to take one hit, so I decide to just go for Shadow Claw. Discharge does some big damage, but we're able to get through paralysis and knock out Jolteon. Last is Altaria. I'm going to go for King Shield just to block whatever attack it goes for, and it ends up going for Dragon Pulse. As long as I don't get caught in paralysis, we should win. Dragon Pulse does minimal damage since we're in shield form, we switch to blade form, and Shadow Claw knocks it out. So we get by the final rival battle, but the Elite Four are no joke, and I'm gonna show you why. So I'm gonna put them up on screen now. So like in Black and White, you can battle them in any order. We have Wilkstrom, who's the Steel type specialist, Drasna, the Dragon type specialist, Malva, the Fire type specialist who you see on screen right now, and Seabold, the Water type specialist. Now on paper, you can assume that Malva is the toughest matchup, and you would be correct. And she's the reason why I want to try and get her out of the way first. But this battle goes horribly. And I prepared incorrectly, because there is a move that Aegislash can learn that would have made this battle probably a first try victory. But you saw Malva's team. Two of her Pokemon have the ability Flame Body, and since we're going to be relying on Sacred Sword for a majority of her Pokemon, well, this is going to end badly. So she leads with Pyroar, who's part normal type, but also outspeeds Aegislash. It opens the battle with Flamethrower as I try to set up Sword Stance. Flamethrower does over half to me, and I'm recovering a little bit with the leftovers. I go for King Shield just to recover a little bit more, and now I need to go on the offensive. It goes for Noble Roar, which lowers attack and special attack. Sacred Sword is able to one-shot it, and next is Talonflame. This thing has Flare Blitz, so I want to go for King Shield and try to lower its attack as much as possible while not taking back too much damage on the turns that I set up Sword Stance. And you can see that Flare Blitz is doing considerably less now. I want to try to set up as many Sword Stance as possible for the Torkoal. That thing has both Earthquake and Flame Wheel, both of which can do big damage to Aegislash. Unfortunately, Talonflame's Flare Blitz burns me, so all my setup is for nothing. And for now, I can only delay the inevitable, because I can't recover fast enough with the leftovers from the burn damage. And while I am able to knock out Torkoal, although I need some King Shield and Sword Stance set up, unfortunately, the burn damage gets the best of me, so we don't even make it to Chandelure. And while I thought Malva would be the toughest opponent on paper, Seabold actually proved to be a lot tougher. You see, we can barely make it by his first Pokemon Clawitzer, which has Dark Pulse. I can only set up 2 Sword Stance before we have to knock it out, because we don't have enough HP. And his next Pokemon is Gyarados, which knows Intimidate, so we only have 3 attack boosts. And unless we one-shot it, it's going to one-shot us with Earthquake. Which, spoilers, that's exactly what happens. And I could teach Aegislash a move with Heart Scales like Head Smash that would really help out in this battle, or against someone like Malva, but the recoil damage from Head Smash would knock us out quicker than we could knock out any opposing Pokemon. So what do? Well, there is another move that Aegislash can learn via TM, and it's one that I didn't pick up. Shout out to Master Sword Objection from Scott's Thoughts Discord for pointing this out to me. Aegislash can learn TM80 Rock Slide, which is found in Koraway Town. With this move now, it's time to see if Aegislash can finally make it through the league. We're going to start with Wickstrom. I can only set up 1 Sword Stance thanks to Klefki's Torment, but Shadow Claw knocks it out. Probopass has Sturdy, and Wickstrom likes to heal it with full restores, so we're essentially going to rotate between Shadow Claw and Sacred Sword because of the Torment until we knock this thing out. His third Pokemon is Scizor, and I'm going to go for King Shield because it does have Night Slash on its moveset. Thankfully, we do outspeed it, and Sacred Sword is able to one-shot it. Last, it's Aegislash versus Aegislash. I really should have just went for Shadow Claw right away because we do outspeed and probably would have one-shot it. But I decided to go for King Shield to lower its attack, another Sword Stance to buff mine, and Shadow Claw to finish it off. Next up is Drasna, and she leads with Dragalge. I set up 2 Sword Stances. It hits me with Surf and Thunderbolt, which the leftovers recover a lot of the damage dealt. Shadow Claw is able to one-shot it. Next up is Noivern, and I'd like to do a solo run with both this and Dragalge. Flamethrower does over half to me, but Shadow Claw is able to one-shot it. And her final two Pokemon, Altaria and Druddigon, are both outsped and one-shot with Shadow Claw. So before trying Malva again, it's time to change our moveset. I'm going to teach Rock Slide in the place of Shadow Claw, and I'm hoping Rock Slide's 90% accuracy doesn't screw me over in the next few battles. Alright, so as we've seen with Malva, she leads with Pyroar. I'm going to go for a straight offensive strategy. I go for Rock Slide right away. Pyroar does outspeed and Noble Roar lowers my attack so we don't one-shot it. I decide to go for King Shield anticipating Flamethrower, which it does use. I go for Sacred Sword the next turn as it uses another Noble Roar. We knock it out, and next is Talonflame, and this is the Pokemon I'm going to set up against. Talonflame is just going to spam Flare Blitz, and we can use King Shield to lower its attack, and then go for Swords Dance while taking back minimal damage from Flare Blitz. Unfortunately, the downside to this strategy is that Talonflame has plenty of opportunities to attack me, and it eventually burns me. This will cut my attack stat in half, but I think at this point, we have enough setup to take out the rest of her team. Rock Slide takes out Talonflame since it is 4 times super effective. All we have left is Torkoal and Chandelure. Rock Slide one-shots Torkoal, and as long as we outspeed Chandelure, which we do, we win. So that's one annoying league member out of the way. Can we get a second out of the way? Seabold leads with Clawitzer. I want to get at least 2 Swords Dance set up because Gyarados does have Intimidate. I do go for King Shield between setup turns just to minimize damage, recover some with the leftovers, but after 2 Swords Dance, we're going to go for Sacred Sword, and it's a one-shot on Clawitzer. We level up, going into Gyarados, and please Rock Slide. Do not miss now. I go for King Shield just because I know Gyarados is going to go for Earthquake, but we actually outspeed it, so I could have just gone straight offensive here. And with Gyarados out of the way, the battle is rather easy from here on out. Starmie comes out next. I go for King Shield as it goes for Surf, and just being in the shield form will minimize damage from Surf. We're going to be able to one-shot it with Rock Slide, and all that's left is Barbaracle, which we have Sacred Sword for, and it's super effective, so it's also a one-shot. All that's left is the champion Diantha, which for this battle, I'm going to put Shadow Claw back on our moveset in place of Rock Slide. So prior to playing X and Y, I had heard that Diantha was one of the toughest champions in any Pokemon game. Let's see if Aegislash can conquer her on the first try. She leads with Hawlucha. I'm gonna set up Swords Dance, which Hawlucha also goes for Swords Dance. It does outspeed as well, which worries me a little bit. It picks X-Scissor though, which we double resist. After 3 turns of setup, I can go on the offensive. Shadow Claw one-shots Hawlucha, and from here, none of her Pokemon can really do much. We outspeed Goodra and one-shot it with Shadow Claw. Next is Tyrantrum, which we outspeed and one-shot with Sacred Sword. And next is Gourgeist. I go for King Shield because I wasn't sure if we would outspeed or what it would do, and it goes for Phantom Force. I go for King Shield again, and Phantom Force does about a quarter of my HP. Fortunately, we do outspeed it, Shadow Claw one-shots it, and there's only 2 Pokemon left, which are Aurorus and Mega Gardevoir. Aurorus comes out, Sacred Sword is able to one-shot it, and all that's left is Guardy. If we outspeed, we win. If we don't, this could be trouble. It Mega Evolves, and we do outspeed it, getting the win. And Aegislash has done it. This is a in-game time of 7 hours and 5 minutes total. And while I had a lot of fun making this and running one of my favorite Pokemon, I am open to feedback on how to better structure these videos in the future, if you'd like to see more, of course. I would love to do runs with the starters, Sylveon, heck, even the Mega Evolved Pokemon. Originally, when structuring this video, I wanted to show off some things for folks who may have never played Gen 6 or X and Y. But as I went on, I found myself cutting out a lot more and more because there's just a lot of filler in these games, especially from the Team Flare side of things. I think going forward, I'm going to cut out a lot of that, and probably not even talk about rival battles outside of Callum. We're going to be going back to some vanilla Gen 1 solo runs, and I've got some Gen 2 crystal runs coming in the near future. I've also been working on a Black 2 White 2 solo run, so expect that to come out probably around early April. One last thing to note, I actually ordered a new microphone and audio interface. So going forward, the audio quality is probably, hopefully, going to be sounding a little better in these videos. As always, thank you for the continued support on the channel. If you liked this video, let me know what Pokemon you'd like to see next in X and Y. I'm gonna get started on my next video though, so I'll catch y'all in the next one. Take care, everybody.